you're doing, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast. What's going on here? We've got an actual person in the room with us for the first time. Very, very different to normal. As England win against Croatia in their first Euro 2020 game in the group stage, it finishes 1-0 to England. We're joined with Martin, my godfather. It's strange to have someone in it. We have had some guests before. We've got another guest as well going to come on in just a second. But Martin, how you doing? My godfather here actually in the room.
Good to see you, Jack.
It feels weird to have someone in it. It does. It really does feel weird. But buzzing. What a game. What a first game to have someone in the studio and have someone first in here as England lift off their Euro 2020 campaign with a fantastic win. Matthew's already come in the chat saying get in there. Fantastic win. Phillips was incredible. And I can't argue, Matthew. He was absolutely fantastic. We'll come on to that as well. We'll also be coming on to every single performer across the pitch as England do win their first game. We're joined with as well, out in LA, we're joined with Dan. We'll try and get over here now. A few technical. Hopefully it comes up okay, and everyone can see Dan all okay. Bang. How's it doing, Dan? How you doing, my friend?
Hi. Good afternoon, England. How you doing?
Well, like I said, we've already spoken just before we went live. Much better now. I think that's the most important thing. Much better now. We've secured 3 points, and in very, very important 3 points. And I'll ask you first, Dan. Just give your general views on that game, just in a general term. How did you feel we did in this game?
So I was watching the game with a group of 40-something grizzled expats who all have the same expectation of every England tournament, which is we're either going to win it or we're going to get knocked out in the group stages. I think that's how every major tournament goes. And bearing in mind it was 6 o'clock in the morning for us, there was a point after Foden hit the post in the first half, and then nothing really happened after that. We're all sitting there thinking, we've got up at 6 in the morning. This is going to be one of those where it's either 0-0 or they're going to nip one. So for us to actually win and for Southgate's team selection to justify itself, I think it's a cracking start to a tournament. Slow and steady, not spectacular, but getting the 3 points is massive.
Yeah, it was. We know how important it is, and it was the first time England have won their first and opening Euro 2020 game in the group stage, which is a fantastic stat to finally overcome. And it was very, very important that we get off to a good start. It's so important that England and any team in a major tournament starts with a win because, the performance wasn't best. We can all agree on that. But it's momentum, most important. It's momentum. Taking a performance, taking a win into the next game. We've got Scotland on Friday, and then we've got Czech Republic, of course, on Tuesday. So for a major tournament, we've still got a little while, and there'll be obviously plenty of time to go through that game. And as you said down there, starting strong was something that we were really hoping we could get. Starting strong and Foden hitting the post. We spoke about it in the preview yesterday. A lot of people were on it live. We spoke about starting strong and starting quickly. We didn't see it against Austria and Romania in the 2 warm-up games. We saw it today. We started with a bit of tempo. In hot weather, we started with real tempo. And that's what we wanted to see. We've got a few chats hopefully coming in right now. Obviously, normally I can see them straight away, but because we've got this, we can switch back over here. Hopefully, people can all see us. And as we already said as well, Matthew's already given his thoughts on what was a very, very good result, and we're very, very happy about that. As we switch back over and see Dan on here. So, Dan, I've got another question for you. I think it's probably... Well, we've already heard from Matthew spoke about Calvin Phillips being man of the match. Dan, man of the match for England. Who are you giving it to?
I think it has to be Calvin Phillips. And maybe not man of the match, but person whose influence was the biggest is, beyond Calvin Phillips, was Raheem Sterling. So there's a school of thought, rightly, that, why aren't we playing Jack Grealish? And Southgate likes to do what Southgate likes to do, which is fine. He's better qualified than us. And I think playing Sterling, and although Sterling did miss a sitter, he did also score. And I think that means a lot. I think that was a good selection. Grealish will play later in the tournament, I'm sure. But having him play and score, I think is great for him. He's a confidence player who scores in clusters. So him scoring at the beginning of the tournament is excellent. So Phillips man of the match, but Sterling's contribution can't be forgotten, and I think Southgate got it right.
Yeah, I think so. So Dan, I mean, that flat point in the game, you said, I'm fresh off the plane from Detroit this morning, so a bit of jet lag was kicking in, and I think it was probably about 3 or 4 minutes before Sterling opened with that goal that Jack actually said, "Let's get him off."
I did say that. It was time, I thought, where Sterling wasn't impacting the game as much as we've seen him. We know what Raheem Sterling can do. He's a moments player, and a lot of wingers are. But I did feel like he wasn't impacting the game the way that I wanted him to. He wasn't impacting the game. We know Jack Grealish on the bench can impact a game. We've got Kaja here saying defence was, and I've just got to see the rest of that chat. What does he say? The defence was, I'm hoping to say solid. Yeah, he said defence was solid today. And that is hopefully everything's okay with the smoothness of the stream. We are opening 2 Zoom calls at the moment, so it could be slightly laggy, but hopefully it is okay. We're trying to we're just getting someone all the way from LA, so bear with us with that. But no, I thought a fantastic performance, and we spoke about Calvin Phillips. I think he deserves. We should speak about Calvin Phillips one more time before we sort of move on from him. He was absolutely fantastic today. I thought Calvin Phillips was very, very good. The way that he sort of we spoke about it before with Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips in there. I spoke about how that could be too defensive, that could be too much of a holding midfield, I think you could say. But the way that Declan Rice sort of was sat much deeper, and then we sort of had Calvin Phillips look as more of a box to box, play a little bit higher than Declan Rice. That was something that I think was good, and like I think Matthew's already said it there. We spoke about how that team selection was slightly controversial. Matthew says Mings played well as well. I thought he proved a lot of critics wrong. He did, and he went with Tyrone Mings. He went with some of those players that we did have some doubts with, and I think he got proved right. We will come on to another one, and I will speak to Dan about this as well. Is that selection at left back? 2 left backs, one not even in the squad. The other one probably one of the best in the Premier League this season, being Luke Shaw. He went with a right back. At left back. Dan, when you saw that team selection come through, what were you thinking when you saw we had 2 left backs to choose from? He goes with a right back there, Kieran Trippier.
It's all slightly ridiculous that the main focus of debates in this squad are around fullbacks. So in a tournament, the most exciting thing should be who's going to score your goals. And there's been an obsession with obviously having 4 potential right backs until Trent got injured, and then this whole left back, right back thing. I mean, look, I think English fans always are slightly confused by players who choose not to play in England. So, like, if you're not playing in the Premier League, are you really good enough to play for England? There's always been a thing England fans have thought about. So, Trippier, who's had a cracking season, he can play either side, and he's also in there for his free kicks. And I know he didn't quite score with his free kick, but he's in there for that as well. But I think he had a very solid game. It's easy to criticise a manager and say, why the hell is he playing at that person at left back? But actually, Trippier's not like he's never played there before. He had a solid game. The defence looked solid. One thing we were commenting on during the game over here is, even though England, we're always, as England fans, nervous that we're not going to win a game, Croatia really did not look like scoring. And some of that is about Croatia, but some of that is about England. So the setup at the back worked. We were solid. There weren't really any chances. So I think if Gareth Southgate, who had a cracking tournament 2 years ago, thinks that that's his team, then I'm not sure that I mind that much, because it did work and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I think he does know what he's doing. And Martin, you go. What you got to say there?
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Dan. I just want to, while there's a few questions coming in over Jack's live blog, I just want to go back to a couple of things. So reason why Dan's joining us today. I've known Dan for many years. We both live in the States, and just from the time you spent this morning watching the game, Dan, and I've seen how much soccer has grown in the US in the 9 years that I've been living over there. Just before we go into the analysis of the rest of the game, just give me your thoughts. I know you work for a soccer team and have got a blog and a podcast as well in California, and you can tell us a little bit about that. But I'm interested on your views about what do we think the Americans' perception is of watching a European-centric tournament, and how the people get behind their teams and the kind of atmosphere, like you said, watching it with a load of expats. What's your what can you tell us about how you see it?
It's come at an interesting time. So, football in America, or soccer as they call it here, obviously, is growing exponentially. So it is the most participated in youth sport, boys and girls. TV viewing numbers are through the roof. Always a good proxy for how popular a sport is the betting numbers are going up, and it's soon going to replace NHL. So it will become the fourth most popular sport behind basketball, baseball, and American football. And this year, their American players are doing well. So there were more Americans in the Champions League knockout stages than ever before. So you've got Pulisic at Chelsea, you've got McKenna, you've got Reina, you've got Dest, you've got people at, Barcelona, you've eventually got players at big clubs. So there's been fascinating interest, and they love European football and they love the Champions League. Now, obviously, there's Americans participating, so that gets them exciting. The Euros is obviously a different ballgame because it's just European players, so there's no American interest in it. So that drops off a little bit, but I think they know it's a big deal. The broadcasters here know it's a big deal. Every game is going to be on. And it does permeate the consciousness here. Like the NBA playoffs are on at the moment, so there's a lot of that going on. But people are watching the games and taking an interest. So obviously every expat, and that's both real expats like me, but also people with, Danish grandparents and German cousins, like they all claiming a team. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of that. And there's just, because football's so big, there is a lot of interest in it, and the broadcasters are fully behind it. So a lot of people are talking about it. Now, obviously, it is still not mainstream in the same way. So I was talking to a colleague last night who asked me how the UEFA championships are going, which is something I don't think you'd ever hear anywhere else. And, I was watching the Wales-Switzerland game, and the commentators, sometimes they have British commentators, sometimes they have American commentators. And there's still, as is very frustrating for us, lots of, good decision by the centre referee, which they call it. They always get injury time and extra time mixed up. It's very annoying. Bookings are always yellow card cautions, as they call them. So there's quite a lot of that stuff still, but the games are still on. People are watching them, and I think, and obviously not for good reasons, but with what happened yesterday with Christian Eriksen, obviously, looks like it's going to work out. But when that happened, that obviously breaks through the barrier of what is sport and what isn't. So everyone in America knows that there is now a tournament going on, even if the people who weren't watching it, because that made real mainstream news over here. Yeah. So, like I say, people are watching it. People are wondering why all these expats are getting up early in the morning. I think it will never be like it would be in Europe, but they're definitely, because people are playing the sport now, and this is the tournament of the summer, it will get a lot of coverage. But then so will Copa America, because, that's nearer to home and they love all that. But the networks are showing it, and that in America is always a big sign of faith.
So Dan, we said we were going to come on to a couple of things around the events of yesterday, but also a review of the rest of the game today. But I'm quite interested a little bit about your team. I can see the sport in the hat there, Orange County. Yeah. What league is that in? What kind of players have you got? Is there a European makeup, of the team? Have you got kind of some old Major League Soccer players in there? How does it work? Just tell us a little bit how it is and how the interest around the game is at that level, and how important it is in general, in California and across stateside.
Yeah, a t-shirt as well as hat.
There it is. Full action.
So look, we play in the United Soccer League, which is the second level of American soccer. So everyone's heard of MLS. Yeah. We're the level below.
The championship for English, but that's the championship for any English.
It sort of is. So it's the fastest growing second tier soccer league in the world. Obviously, because it's America, though, yes, we're sort of the championship, but you don't get promoted if you win. This is one of obviously, the European Super League principle was built on the American sporting principle of you're guaranteed your spot. So if we win the championship this year, we don't appear in MLS next year. We just stay in our league. That's how it works. But, the standard is high. So if you look at our team, we've got one former Rangers player. We signed a Finnish international who obviously is not in the Finland squad anymore, but played alongside the team who we're playing now. We signed him. He was at Real Madrid. Yesterday, I was actually talking to one of our players. He's injured, unfortunately, at the moment, but a chap called Thomas Enedvoldsen, who was in the 2010 Danish World Cup squad alongside Christian Eriksen, and I was talking to him about his teammate. So we've got legitimate players who've played in international tournaments. We've got people who played in the MLS. We've got former US national team players. We've got a lot of youth players. We've got players who've played in youth US teams. We sold a player to Glasgow Rangers recently. We've got a strategic partnership with them, and we've got a Rangers player on loan with us. So, you'll be surprised at the standard. I think when people say, give me an example of whether it's real football or not, I will tell them that last time we got to the playoffs, we were knocked out by a late winning goal by Didier Drogba, who was playing for Phoenix at the time. So, it's real football played at a real level. Like I say, I was talking to one of Christian Eriksen's teammates yesterday, and he's one of our top players. So it's certainly real football played at a real level.
And how critical is this level then in terms of growing the game? We talk over here, don't we? Talk about the grassroots of the sport and getting back into the community and how you grow the game and how you promote the game. What does it mean in stateside? At that level.
So you have to remember the size of America. So there are local rivalries in the MLS where the teams are an hour and a half flight away from each other, and that's still a local derby. Yeah. So this isn't walking across Stanley Park for Liverpool and Everton fans, or 3 tube stops in North London. This is your nearest team is sort of 8 hours drive away. So it's a big country. So you've got the MLS teams, but there's plenty of room for USL teams as well. And some of our teams are in places where there's not an MLS club for 5 hours in any direction, and they play in front of 17,000 people. So it's an important extra level. You can't just have a league of the MLS in a country of this size. So it's a big part of developing the game. So as I said, it's the highest participation sport for youth. So they need somewhere to go, and obviously college is part of it in America. But we offer that extra league, and we bring players through and give them a route to Europe. So part of our business model as a club is selling players into Europe. We sold 2, and we've got more to come this season. So we're creating an opportunity for the next level of Christian Pulisic and so on to come through. And it doesn't mean they need to stop at MLS. Sometimes they're better off coming through our level and then moving straight across to Europe as younger players. So it's a big part of the game. And look, if you live in Orange County, you could drive an hour and a half up the road to go and watch LA Galaxy or LAFC, and people do. But actually, driving 80 miles to watch a football game, that is like being, a fan of a London club and driving up to the Midlands every week for your home games. So, it's a big enough country that you can support your local team, and we're the local team in Orange County.
Great point. So, going to hand back to Jack. There's a couple of things I think we want to touch on. First of obviously the events of yesterday. Rest of the thoughts of the England performance today, and then before Dan leaves us in about 10-15 minutes, I want his predictions for the rest of the group stages and who's gonna win, and maybe we'll catch up with him later on in the tournament and see how his
if we're still in it.
Going.
If we're still in it, we'll do that. We'll touch on yesterday's incident, if that's the best way of putting it, with Christian Eriksen. Thankfully, from what we know now, I think it has been released from the doctor that it was a cardiac arrest, and it was obviously something that was quite a shocking and quite nerve-wracking, and sort of, it was such a strange experience, because no one really, obviously you don't expect that sort of thing, you never hope for that sort of thing, but no one really knew what was really going on, and as it sort of developed, it sort of got more and more sort of scary and worrying for a fan perspective. But I think what we definitely should touch on is how well the medical staff dealt with the situation, how really well the actual situation was dealt, really from top to bottom, from medical staff, from the referee. I think Anthony Taylor's got a lot to do with that. I think stopping the game straight away and the way he dealt with that. And I was already, like I said, the medical staff were absolutely fantastic with the way they dealt with that. And I think it was someone I was speaking to that he was actually, if anything that horrific is going to happen, you're actually better off that happening in a football stadium than you are in your own house, because the amount of people, the amount of unbelievable medical staff around that place, you are better off being in a place surrounded by such professionals.
Yeah, so I think I timed a few things. I think it took 1.5 seconds to stop the game. I think it was 5 or 6 seconds before I think it was the team captain rolled him over and unblocked his airway, and then the paramedics were on the pitch, and I think it was the actual paramedics were at him within 1 minute 30 seconds. So it was pretty good, and they were doing pretty aggressive chest compressions after 2 minutes. So it was horrible to see. I think the other thing, and maybe I'd like to bring Dan in on this one as well. You get to you see how important humanity is instead of the actual sport itself. And I think we're very quick to criticize the money these footballers they make, and they can be divas. But if you looked at how the ring was put around their teammate, shielding them from the cameras, the way the Finnish fans threw their flags out, to kind of give them a bit of coverage, I thought there was a real humble and humanitarian side of it that I think we all got a really good reminder of yesterday of what sport is all about. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right, Martin. I think these sorts of events transcend sport. See, this is not the first time this has happened. Obviously, there was the Fabrice Muamba, happened on the pitch. Same sort of thing. I mean, his was worse in the sense that he was clinically dead for 78 minutes, although obviously went on to survive. The Mark Vivian Foe, who collapsed on the pitch and sadly did die. I think it's, these things do happen, and as you say, happening in the stadium. That could have happened to him in training, could have happened to him overnight, and it would have been a very different outcome.
Yeah.
So it was extraordinary to see, and I think the Danish players managed it incredibly well. And even just the way it happened, I mean, that we understand, he FaceTimed from the hospital and said, go out and play for us. And so that's why they agreed to play, because, he was okay at that point. But, it could have been so much worse. And, you don't know what happens next. One has to assume his career may well be over now. But I think he'd be grateful to have survived that, and he wouldn't have done had he not had that level of attention. And what's interesting is it brings home to people when you see, because people have heart attacks, even as young as him, all the time, all over the world, and you don't see it. But seeing how that plays out, it's a game changer. And I think, so I play football every week for the BAFTA team in Los Angeles. So we're a group of people, some in their mid-20s, some in their 40s, some not a little bit older than that. We actually had a conversation around, should we all chuck in $50 each and buy a defibrillator to keep by our pitch for when we play our regular Wednesday night games? And we may well do that. And I know after the Mwamba incident, there was a big push for clubs to A, screen people for heart conditions, and then B, for non-league clubs to invest in having defibrillators, because not all of them do. And I think this is a sort of tragedy that may turn into saving some lives further down the road.
Definitely. And you touched on there about they actually did resume the game, and it was Eriksson that FaceTimed the players to sort of go out there and do it for him. And I think if they won, it would have made a fantastic story if they had have won. Unfortunately, the actual performance, if we look at it from a Danish footballing perspective, it wasn't a great performance. And they missed a penalty. Of course, Højbjerg missed that penalty. It could have been a very, very different story. But Dan, I'll ask you a question, and that's, would you have played that game? And do you think it did that? It sounds like a silly question, but that must have affected the mindsets of those players. And Christian Eriksen ultimately was the person that said, go out there and play it. Would you have played it? I mean, you can't really say no to someone that's lying in hospital saying play that. You can't really say, no, I don't think it's the case. And he did say that. But would you have played that? And how do you think that would have impacted it?
So it's really tricky. Look, this is an international tournament being played in very complicated conditions. Partly because they're doing this multi-country thing, but also because of COVID. These schedules are tight. From a tournament point of view, there's not a lot of time to reschedule games. And the players were given a choice, which is play out the game today or play it tomorrow. And the coach talked to the players, Christian Eriksen talked to the players, and the view was no one's going to be able to sleep. It'll be horrible to go back the next day, almost get it played. Yeah. And you could see, a couple of players chose not to play, so they had to change, chose not to resume. You could see that, obviously, they dominated the game. Finland are the first team in a major championship to win a game with only one shot on target. That's a is a rarity. Even though there was the missed penalty and Schmeichel made an uncharacteristic mistake, they still dominated the game. But you could tell there was something missing. And it could have gone two ways. This could have been one of those classic rallying calls and they end up winning 5-0 in sort of spirit of what had gone on.
Yeah.
But you could tell that they were struggling. But I think in some ways it was the right thing to do to play the game and to play it then. Maybe even before some of the players had fully digested all that had happened. And Ericsson saying go ahead and play, if this had turned out differently, I've no idea what this looks like for the tournament, for that team. But fortunately, it turned out the right way. He said go and play. They're professionals, but they're also humans. But you'll see a very different Denmark in the second game. But, I think they did the right thing to play. Once Ericsson said go and play, they've just got to go and play.
So, so Dan, we're gonna kind of go over to the rest of Jack's chat in a minute. Give us some predictions. What two teams do you think we're going to see in the final?
So pre-tournament, I was thinking the favourites were Belgium and France. A game in, you can't change it too much, but Italy looked remarkably good. I know Turkey weren't amazing, but Italy have had a hell of a qualifying campaign. They score, they concede very few, I think, and they're a good tournament team. So I'm thinking we need to keep an eye on Italy. And with England, I think, as always, we're either going to win it or we're going to lose to Scotland, draw with Czech Republic, and probably fall out of the tournament in embarrassment. So, or we'll win it, and that's how it goes for us. Jack's too young, unfortunately. In some ways, it's a blessing for you, young Jack, because Martin and I have been through this. You weren't born when we went through the heartbreak of other tournaments where we thought we were going to win and then we didn't. For you, you've come into this and probably only the last couple of tournaments that you've been of an age to really understand it. And it's like, well, England are pretty good. They're sort of a semi-final sort of team, but that's not how we remember it.
No, I mean, I've only probably experienced last year as that Icelandic embarrassing defeat. Probably the worst one. And then we didn't get out of the group stage in the World Cup, as at the Brazilian World Cup 2014. And then since then, the last World Cup was a really good one. And, touch wood, it's a good start. That's what I'm going to say. It's a good start today. So I think that's the best way of putting it. But, I think we'll have some more discussion on the game. But, Dan, I think thank you so much for coming on and talking about the American side of it or the soccer side of it out in the States, and also your thoughts on the game as well, and also your prediction for the rest of the tournament. But what a way to come on. Thankfully, it was a win that you came on for.
So Dan, we'll let's see if we can catch up again sometime before the end of the tournament. See how your predictions are playing out and get the view from the big country, so to speak, and an update of what's going on over there and how the Americans are viewing Euro 2020.
Absolutely. Look, it's a pleasure to come on. Thank you very much for having me. And may I say, what a fantastic thing you're doing. There's different ways of spending your global pandemic, and you setting this up and doing so much with it is absolutely fantastic. Even if your team are nowhere near as good as mine is once.
We'll organise a pre-season friendly. I'm sure we'll get out there when the October's finished. We'll get out and do an American tour to United, Orange County. We'll see what happens. But no, it's been a pleasure to have you on, Dan, and hopefully you will come on, and we'll see you again before the end of the tournament. That'll be amazing.
Thanks a lot, Dan. We'll speak to you soon, and hopefully I'll see you soon, maybe in Vegas.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Take care.
Dan. Take care.
Bye.
Wow, there we go. So thoughts from an American on that game. He said that it wasn't the best performance. It wasn't the sort of unbelievable, mind-blowing performance that we maybe thought we would get. But again, we've got to remember, Martin, it's Croatia, and they've got experienced players. They've got good players. But I remember you saying during the game, you said they don't even look like they're going to score. They don't even look like they want to score. They weren't even pressing.
No, I thought at one point there was one, I'd say, call it a purple patch. I thought maybe this would look like Croatia getting an equaliser and then livening the game up a little bit. I actually predicted 2-1 was going to be the result, but they just look so flat. They hardly came out of the shadows. around Wembley Stadium. To be perfectly honest, threatened a couple of times. But again, even England, apart from the lively start, then they kind of got flat a little bit, and then things really opened up a little bit. I think Croatia looked a bit tired. They got a bit of an aging, more experienced.
It's a fine line, though. It's a fine line between experience and.
But no,
age.
I think England, great defensive performance. I think we touched
Mings,
on that.
We touched on Mings and how yesterday in the preview I said about Mings. I said we don't know what Mings we're going to get. We don't know if it's going to be the solid defensive centre half where where he wins everything and defensively in the aerial on the ground as well. He wins every duel. Today he did do that, and like you just said there, I thought defensively we were very, very good. And I think it was a solid performance. It wasn't a sort of a 3-0 thrashing. But I don't think anyone should have expected England. England in major tournaments, it's never a thrashing. It's never a comfortable watch. It's never a comfortable game against a good side. And if we are going to get that, it certainly wasn't going to be against Croatia. We've got a few people coming in with some thoughts. I believe it's Matthew again. He said, I generally thought, this is going back to the Christian Eriksen situation, I generally thought we've lost him. Big up the medics and the referee for their quick thinking. Also, Danish captain's a true legend. All these people are the real winners of the year, of the Euros generally. And I think Matthew's spot on there with the thoughts on Christian Eriksen. We touched on that. And I think, we're spot on with that situation. I thought the way that they did touch, the way that they dealt with the Christian Eriksen situation was absolutely fantastic. We will continue talking about England. I want to sort of do sort of a player rating sort of thing. We've spoken on man of the match with Calvin Phillips getting that, and I've already spoken there about how well I thought him and Declan Rice did do in the midfield. We thought we were going to see two holding midfielders next to each other, but we didn't. We saw a Declan Rice becoming a little bit deeper, and then we saw a Calvin Phillips finding those spaces, making those runs, and it did make that Sterling goal. We're going to touch on. Who do you want man of the match? I think that's the best way to do it. Is it Calvin Phillips? A lot of people are saying Calvin Phillips in midfield. He was good, and we didn't see much of Kane. I remember you saying that during the game as well. Kane, other than that sort of post collision, we didn't see much of Harry Kane.
No, that was his highlight of the game when he collided with the post. That's for sure. No, I thought Dan summed it up really well. It was a great finish as well for the goal. But yeah, I think I'm with the majority of in terms of the man of the match. Yeah. But just going back to the game overall, if you want to put let's say an American perspective on it as well, I think anybody that tuned in from America that watches the Premier League every Saturday, I think they would have looked at that game and thought, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, it was a slow.
It was slow. It was like Steve said, it was kind of like an old Serie A game from the 90s. In terms of knocking the ball around, it wasn't that normal tempo that we're used to seeing in the Premier League. But yeah, let's go through some of the other player ratings. But at the end of the day, beginning of the tournament, a win's a win. We'll take it, and hopefully it will boost us moving forward for the rest of the tournament.
I think we've got to take into consideration as well when we talk about the tempo. It was hot. It was a warm day, a very unusually warm day. It has been warm for a little while now. It's been quite hot in England generally. That is quite a rarity. But it was hot, and to play a high tempo game of football like you do see in the Premier League, and a lot of people probably would have been surprised by the fact it was a slow. I wouldn't say boring, because I think as soon as you say boring, it's sort of negative twist, and I don't think it should be able to describe it as that, because it's a way of playing football, and playing a slow game of football can work for you. And we did get the job done. The title of the stream, the title of the podcast episode is Sterling does get the job done. It wasn't a mind-blowing performance, but it was a sort of grind it out, get the 3 points, get an important start to this tournament, sort of get out of what is a very, very difficult start to a game. We've got another chat here. Matthew says, I thought Kane was a bit lazy today. Maybe the heat had a part to play in there, but generally wanted to see more of him. That definitely could be a reason. I did think that Harry Kane, he's not the quickest of players, but we do expect a really sort of, I guess, pressing Harry Kane, and we didn't see that really from everyone. I thought Phil Foden started the game strong, but generally, Martin, you say your sort of thing on it. We do expect pressing. It's what we sort of love from the Premier League. It's what we love, and a lot of these players do play in the Premier League. We didn't see that as much there. It was quite a slow game.
Yeah, he just looked lethargic. He just looked really. I don't know if he wasn't hydrated enough, whatever, which is not going to happen with a professional sportsman. But he just looked lethargic, and I think if you look at where the goal came from, and the speed of which they broke out, and kind of the finish from Sterling as well, that was a real part of energy in the game. But I think if you saw that England team play against the Netherlands or France, you'd see a completely different tempo, even in the hot weather. I think, the style of Croatia play, they really kind of sapped the energy out of the game as well. But in the end, England responded, they defended well, and we got the win.
Which is the most important thing, getting the win. But no, I think you're spot on, Matthew, there could be a part to play in that Harry Kane situation. We do need to see more of Harry Kane, though, in this tournament, because remember, this is just one game. And I think if we are going to be successful, whatever define successful as an England fan, define that. But if we are going to be successful, I think Harry Kane's got to be on it, and he has got to be better than he was today. Because on another day, say we don't get that Calvin Phillips, Raheem Sterling goal, that he did have a chance to actually put the ball in the back of the net. He did obviously climb the post, as we mentioned. But that Harry Kane, you sort of almost expect that to go in. We know the clinical finish of Harry Kane. On another day, that could have been the chance, and we might have regretted a few chances in the game where we could have looked back and gone, we could have won that game. We start that early start, we had a few chances early on.
So I'll go back to my point that just before the goal, you said take him off, time for Sterling, substitution. Yeah. What do you think? How much of a difference do you think the substitutions made, and what do you think would be the starting team for the next game? Do you think you'd make any changes?
I'd like to see Jack Grealish come in. I was calling for Jack Grealish to come off the bench. He didn't in the end, and we'll go through the subs as well. So it was Sterling. I think Rashford came on first. Rashford was the first change, and that was Phil Foden off. And then we sort of saw, saw Rashford on the right, and then Harry Kane came off for Jude Bellingham, the 17-year-old, of course, from Dortmund. And then the third substitution would be... Did we make a third one? We must have made a third one. I think we did make a third one. I remember that it was very, very late on. It was Calvert-Lewin came off the bench. For Sterling. So Sterling did eventually come off, but I was calling him to come off when we scored the goal. He was actually the last substitute to come off in the end, and it was, I think Gareth Southgate was a little bit Mr. Cautious. We spoke about it during the game. We spoke about it before the game. He does tend to play quite a lethargic game of football, but a cautious, slower game of football. And he did sort of, even in the team selection, it did look like he was sort of playing not to lose. We didn't lose, and we did get the win, but you could see that throughout the game. It was quite a weird way to set up.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and then. I think Kane was substituted around 80 minutes as well. Yeah. So
it's quite late on.
So yeah, but he's definitely more on the cautious side. But there's some great players in that England side, and I think the tournament, it could shape up to be an absolute cracking tournament.
Matthew says that's the perfect word to describe his performance. Lethargic. There you go, mine. You've got some fans in the chat as well. Perfect.
Pundit chat.
Pundit chat. It's just what we love to see. But no, we'll go through the player ratings, and if you feel free, we're going to sort of discuss player for player. We're going to sort of go through the players, go through what we thought of their performance, and then give yours in the chat. If you're up for it, it's up to you. We'll give our player ratings, and if you want to give yours, we'll do it as well. We'll go through every player in sort of the quickest and summary way possible, because we don't want to go longer really than 45 minutes. We've got 5 minutes to go through every player that stepped on a pitch for England. We'll start off with Jordan Pickford in goal. I'm trying to think. He didn't really do too much, but what he did do, I thought his distribution was a little bit off today. I thought he was kicking it all over the shop at times, but I thought generally from Jordan Pickford, it was quite a calm sort of performance as a goalkeeper. He sort of did everything and almost frustrated Croatia. I thought he didn't have to do too much, but I thought he did okay.
Yeah, I think two things that I would say to that. Yeah, he was kind of slicing it around like I do with a 7-eye.
Yeah, it was.
And I think the second one, when he did have to make a decision and he did have to come for the ball.
Yeah, that was the Kyle Walker.
He was very decisive, and he took the ball clean, protected the ball, but his distribution was.
We said it when it was going on. That Kyle Walker sort of shielding the ball to get it back to the goalkeeper. Matthew says 6 out of 10 for Pickford. I think we'd agree with 6. Let's give him a 6 because that's average. If we go with 6 being average, 10 of course being outstanding, 0 being of course might as well not have been there. I think that Kyle Walker incident as well. We said if that doesn't work, that's an awful. Yeah. That's awful decision making.
Absolutely.
If it goes how it does with Kyle Walker shielding the ball, letting it go to his goalkeeper, it's like genius play. Matthew's a 6 out of 10. We'll move on to left back. There's a bit of controversy. We spoke about it with Dan about we have 2 left backs in the squad. One left back didn't even make the bench, along with Jadon Sancho and of course the injured Harry Maguire. But we went with the left back. There isn't a starting left back. Isn't a sort of a week in week out left back. Went with Kieran Trippier, the right back. Covering. I say covering. He didn't really need to cover, did he? We had other left backs there. He went with Kieran Trippier. Went with a more experienced option. I'd probably have to give Kieran Trippier left. He didn't do too much. I don't think. I think before the game, Gareth Southgate spoke about how the reason why he picked him was because of the fact that he had experience in stopping the balls into the box. We know the threat that Croatia offer when the ball gets put in the box. I'd probably give Kieran Trippier a 6 out of 10. I think that's probably the best way of looking at it. He was pretty solid. I don't really remember too much Kieran Trippier action, to be honest.
No, I think I mean
Free kicks. He had good.
Yeah. That's a good point. As we when we were watching the game, if that was probably 1 or 2 yards back, that was dipping nicely into the net. I'd probably say rather than an individual performance, I'd look at that unit of how they performed, and I think that that back four, I think they played. I'd give it a solid 7.
Yeah, if we're going to defend, if we give an average defensive performance,
if you look at that as a unit, I'd definitely give it a good 7.
We'll talk about the 2 centre halves quickly then. Stones and Mings. We spoke about Mings before the game. We spoke about him yesterday. Spoke about him obviously already in the podcast episode live this afternoon. Mings, we didn't know what he was going to get, but in the end, I thought he was very, very solid. I'd probably give him. I'd say he's a man of the match contender. I'd give him a 7. The tall, powerful centre half. John Stones next to him as well. Went down with cramp during the game. That was a little bit concerning with our centre back issues. We've got already Harry Maguire injured. I'd probably give John Stones a 6 or a 7. But if we're going to give a defensive average of a 7, I think we've probably got to give a few of the actual individual performances a 7.
Absolutely.
Because as a unit, they were very, very good. Move on to the midfield then. We'll speak about the 2 in that midfield. Declan Rice. Didn't see too much of Declan Rice. I remember saying it during the game. We didn't see too much of him, and then Dad said the reason why we haven't seen too much of him as well because he was doing the dirty work and he was doing the stuff that we didn't see, but how important it is to sort of make sure that whole team sort of clicked and ticked together. And that was important to have that player sitting back. You don't see a lot of him. You don't see him, he's not in all the action, but he's just sitting in front of that defence and then doing what a defensive midfielder should do and just protecting that back line. And that's probably also why I think defensively we were so good because we had that stability with an extra defensive midfielder in there. I'd give him a 6 out of 10.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Calvin Phillips then. He was obviously the man of the match that Matthew's already given. It was actually Dan's man of the match. I think we said that we were going to give man of the match to Calvin Phillips as well. I'd probably give him an 8 or even a 9, I'd say. I thought it was good. I thought the runs he made as well. Give your thoughts on Calvin Phillips' performance.
Yeah, I'd say, definitely 8.5.
8.5.
Yeah, 8.5. He was brought some good energy, I think, to the game. And I don't know, he kind of... Every time that he got the ball, I don't know. He was searching, he was poking. I just felt that he looked dangerous in terms of how he was distributing and moving the ball through midfield. So I think he covered a lot of ground, and overall definitely worthy of man of the match.
8.5 from
and
you?
a good match. Give him a good
8.5. 8.5. I'll give him an 8.5 as well. I thought Calvin Phillips was fantastic today. Another player that was sort of a controversial point in him being starting, and I guess he's made Gareth Southgate, the manager, look like that was a very, very good decision. We'll move on to the front, 4, if you like. We got that central attacker midfielder. Of course, it was Mason Mount that started in there today. Mason Mount, the Chelsea midfielder. I don't think he did a lot. He's in my fantasy team as well, and he didn't really sort of impact the game as well as I hoped he would have done. But he was there. He did okay. I'd probably give him a 6. I don't think we can give someone that wasn't there and wasn't involved in the game as much as we'd want him to anything higher than a 6. I think 6 is probably fair. His average. I don't think he did anything bad, but he was there, and he did lay off the ball quite well out on the flanks as well. I thought generally he was good, but not obviously to the Mason Mount standard that we have seen in recent weeks, specifically in that Champions League final a few weeks ago. We'll talk about Raheem Sterling then because we've already spoken to him about the goal, but we did want him to come off, and I'd say even after he scored the goal, he didn't impact the game as much. It was sort of that 10-second moment where he did score the goal, and the run he made from the goal. We were speaking as soon as that goal went in. We said his runs haven't been very good today.
No.
And then we spoke about it, and then about 30 seconds later, he makes a perfect run, and he gets on the end of a fantastic. But it was a very, very good ball from Calvin Phillips. But that run was very, very good. We spoke about it.
Yeah, I think he did quite a lot of good running off the ball as well. I would say just because of the finish, the way he took that goal. It's really hard. I think as a professional athlete coming in, you've got a lot of people on your back, and it's the manager that's kind of backing his man. He dealt with the pressure really well, and he's vindicated his performance and his selection. I would give him not the man of the match, but I would give him 8 because he took the goal really, really well, and there was a lot of pressure on him, and he's dealt with that really well. And let's see now. Hopefully, it's going to give him a really good boost for the tournament. I think a lot of it is about confidence, and he'll probably now come into that game knowing that he's taken that goal. at home in front of the fans in Wembley, and hopefully that will give him some really good confidence now coming into the next game.
And that's the most important thing. We spoke about it for the team, but it also works for individuals as well. It's momentum, it's confidence. It wasn't his best performance for Raheem Sterling we've seen, but it was a performance in which that goal is so important because it's moments in tournaments. It's we're not talking about a season here. It's not a 38-game season. This is a game in which we're playing 3 games, 3 group stage games. You only play each other once in the space of about a week, and getting those points, and you don't have to be unbelievable for 90 minutes, but if you get the goal and how important that goal was, it was the winning goal, so you've got to give him the credit, and you've got to give him the credit that I think he quite rightly deserves, and that run to split the 2 defenders, he ran in between, it was Vida and the other centre-half for Croatia, that I can't remember on top of my head the actual name of him, but he ran straight in the middle of them, a greatly timed run, and that pass, the vision from Calvin Phillips to find that pass, that perfectly weighted pass into Raheem Sterling, and he nearly actually got blocked from the defender. The defender came crushing through, but Raheem Sterling did a bit of a tumble. But in the end, it's a goal, and celebrating in front of the fans at Wembley. It was great to see the fans back in the stadium. And that's a question I'll pose to you now before we quickly move on to the rest of the players. How important do you think it was having fans back in Wembley Stadium before the first game of the Euros? It must have been crucial.
I think everything. I mean, nobody wants to see and be playing in front of empty stadiums, and to be honest with you, my personal opinion is I think they could have probably allowed even more in attendance. I think everyone's a little bit worried about full capacity, but it's a beautiful stadium. There's so much space. You're outside. I didn't think there's no reason why they couldn't have kind of had 45,000 there. But I think it's important for the players. But I think it's important for the public watching as well. It gives much more sense of atmosphere rather than the piped crowd noises that you hear. I think seeing spectators, seeing the joy on the spectators, the interaction between the fans and the spectators, it lifts the mood of the nation as well. So I think it was absolutely critical.
And it's important to say as well that the fans in that stadium were double vaccinated and tested as well. So there probably is an argument that can in there. And obviously as well, it does depend on the capacity of the stadium you're playing at. Because like we said as well, this is a tournament that is played across Europe. So there's so many different stadiums. We saw yesterday in Copenhagen. I mean, the fans that we saw were obviously a bit of a shocked fan, obviously with the Christian Eriksen situation, but we saw there was quite a few fans in that Denmark stadium, so it must have been that the situation with COVID, it has to depend on the country that it's being played in. So the Copenhagen situation with COVID-19 must be safe enough to allow more fans into that stadium than it was at Wembley.
Every country's got a different rule. From the pretty much if you were to play that game from the 1st of July in my home state where I'm living, in Michigan, you'd be allowed to have 90,000 fans there.
Yeah, and that's the difference as well, isn't it? And there probably will be games we'll see across the stadium. Of course, every home game that England, every game's at home because every game that England play in the group stage is at Wembley. And I think most games that England play in the sort of the path to, I'm going to say the final. Let's not the path that England could get to the final does see most of the games being played at Wembley. However, I think there's 1 or 2 games that could potentially happen where England don't play at Wembley. So we could see more fans in there across it. But from what it looks like, let's say the majority of games are playing at Wembley, so it does look like.
Let's not get too ahead of it.
But let's just
like Dan said, my heart and soul is behind England, and I really think that they can go deep into the tournament. But just when you get your hopes up, like Dan said, all of a sudden you've got a loss to Scotland in front of you and maybe a shabby draw in the third game. So but let's take it. Fans at live venues, it's starting to happen all over the country. It's starting to happen in other sports. So I think it's a great boost for the country and also for the team. For
everyone, I think it's so important to have fans back in there. And we'll move on now to the players we haven't spoken about. So we've got 3 more players to speak about. I don't think there's any subs. Marcus Rashford, we'll touch the subs quickly because we don't need to go into too much detail with them. Marcus Rashford came on, didn't really impact the game as much as we thought he could. I don't think we can give him more than a 6. He came on, didn't really see too much of him. He got on the ball a few times, made a few decent runs, but other than that, didn't really impact the game. Matthew says that Austria 1-0 up against North Macedonia as well. So if you've got North Macedonia in your sweepstake, I know someone has it at work. If you've got North Macedonia, you were very unlucky, and it looks like for them 1-0 down already. So not a great start for them.
Sounds like a thriller.
Austrian. You're better off watching this. To be fair, you're better off watching this. Other than that, then we'll speak that Marcus Rashford didn't do too much. Calvert-Lewin didn't come on and impact the game a lot really. and I don't think he touched the ball. Probably touched the ball once or twice. And then the other substitute was Jude Bellingham. I thought came on Jude Bellingham, the young 17-year-old. And I remember you asking, double checking how old he was when he came on. 17. That's 1 year older than me. And the difference where I am, I'm sat here talking to a few people about England beating Croatia. He's actually playing in England versus Croatia, and there's only a 1 year difference. 17-year-old. He's gone from Birmingham to Dortmund in Germany. What a story that is, a 17-year-old in a tournament.
Absolutely. Well, you should have trained harder as a kid, shouldn't you? That's what you should have done.
Reason.
No, it's great seeing anybody like that. And you've got to give credit as well to Gareth Southgate and the back team, backroom staff in England to kind of being able to develop, young men and teenagers and being able to get them in the game that soon. It's a great experience for him to come out, represent your team, your country in front of millions of people that are viewing. What a great moment for the young man. And I think we spoke about Harry Kane as well.
Yeah,
very lethargic. There was a couple of moments where he looked like he was chasing butterflies out there.
Yeah,
bit of energy, but really didn't do too much at all, did he?
And other than that, is that Phil Foden, of course, the early start hit the post in the first probably about 5 minutes. I thought Phil Foden started strong, but it sort of was a fading performance. It was one of those where it started quick. It started strong. It was a quick start performance from England, and specifically from Phil Foden, and then sort of just faded away. So as the game went, we saw less and less of him. And again, like I said, I think Phil Foden again will be a very, very important player in this tournament. But we have got to see more of him. But again, it's his first game starting. I think for the first game starting in a major tournament for Phil Foden, along with quite a few of the players, you can't blame him too much. But I thought he did okay. He started the game strong and then did sort of slowly move out of the game. But I thought it was all right. And if we're going to give him the player rating, I think we've got to do. We'll do Harry Kane. We didn't speak, but we've spoken about him. We haven't given him a rating. I'd give Harry Kane a 5.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say a 5. Like I said, a few moments where I thought he was chasing butterflies, but other than that, just looked lethargic. Never really got himself going, or even into the game, or even got in on any of the action. So, I would say I think that's probably everyone we've gone through. Solid team performance of a 7. I would say
7 out of 10 for England.
Based on the win, I think if it was any other result, then maybe 5 or 6, but. Definitely, they as a unit they did really, really well overall.
And taking into consideration the team we're playing as well, playing Croatia, we're not playing we're not playing the Romanians who didn't qualify in the war. Again, that's no disrespect to Romania, but we're playing a team, Croatia, who knocked us out in the semi-finals of the World Cup in 2018. We wanted to get revenge. They said it wasn't revenge. It was revenge. It was revenge. They knocked us out. They broke our hearts in 2018. We did get that. We started the Euro strong. We started and got a very, very important 3 points in Group D. We then go to we don't go to Scotland. Scotland come to us on Friday for a very, very big game there. I'm sure that's going to be exciting. We will ask for your score predictions for that one in a second. And then we've got Czech Republic the following Tuesday. Scotland, big game. Like you already mentioned, you didn't mention on the stream, but you mentioned how important and how I think the pubs are going to enjoy that game, if we put it like that. Score predictions for Scotland off the back of a 1-0 England win today. We're top of the group, mainly because Scotland haven't played their games, but as it stands, we're top of the group. Scotland on Friday. Thoughts on that one?
It's going to be. I mean, to have home nations playing each other in a major tournament is always good. I mean, I remember years ago when it was played at Wembley and Gascoigne scored that absolutely incredible goal against Scotland. I'm going to put this out there. I can see Scotland frightening us within the first 10 or 15 minutes, going 1-0 up. But I'm predicting 3-1 England.
3-1 England, back in the nation, back in the English boys, and then obviously Czech Republic as well. I guess to predict that game, we will do it anyway. But to predict that game, I think to get a better prediction will probably come after that Scotland game, because I'm pretty sure if you win, if you win both of those games, you are pretty much qualified going into the third game if you beat Scotland as well, which is a big if. But if we do, score predictions for Czech Republic, it does depend, like I said, on what happens against Scotland. But Czech Republic, we should beat them. Thoughts on that one? Score prediction?
I think it will be a mind-numbingly bad draw.
Sorry, that's 2 wins and a draw then for God, I'm not ready for the Czech Republic game. There we go. But no, thank everybody that's come in. It's been a very, very different stream. We've had two guests, one actually in with me in the stream, and then also we had Dan, of course, out in LA talking about the situation with football and specifically Euro 2020. Also, of course, his team Orange County, who he is the communications director. I'm pretty sure. Is that the right? I've got to get that right, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, he's really involved in putting that team on the map in terms of promoting it and getting all the communications right in that whole organisation.
It was great to have him on the stream and give his thoughts on the game. And thank you to you, Martin, for coming on.
Good to be here, Jack.
It's been a great show. It's been very, very different. I mean, if you've just joined us as well, we've got lots of people liking it, and the interaction as well has been really, really good today. It's been very, very different. But if you've just joined us now and you haven't subscribed, please make sure you do that and leave a like as well, both of which are free and easy. And also, if you watch this as a video, because of course this will be going up as a video, very different to some of the normal match reactions that we do, but certainly one I think will go down in history on the podcast. It's been a very, very interesting one and certainly an insightful one into the different side of football in soccer, as of course in America. So thank you everybody that's tuned in. Thank you to Martin, of course. Thanks to Dan. I don't know if he's still watching now out in LA. It was an early start for him, 6 hours behind or whatever it is. So it's definitely an interesting one for him. But there we go. Thank you everybody that's tuned in. Great win for England. We start off Euro 2020 with a win. I've been Jack. It's been the Unfan Podcast, and I'll see you later. Take care.